Nathan Turner's earliest memories were of his mother scrubbing floors until her knuckles bled and his father arriving home from construction sites covered in dust. Their small town was an unremarkable place where dreams went to die. And Nathan had no intention of letting it become his future. But as the child of a housekeeper and a laborer, his options were limited. Nathan learned early on that charm could get him what hard work couldn't. In high school, he became the class clown. Always ready with a joke or a story that made his classmates laugh and teachers forgive his lack of effort. He was the life of every party. The boy who claimed his parents were out of town on business when, in truth, they were working overtime to keep food on the table. By the time he was 16, Nathan's lies had grown bolder. He told friends his father was the owner of a large construction company, conveniently explaining away his worn shoes by claiming he was testing the workers' conditions firsthand. The fantasy life he painted for himself became his escape from the reality of their cramped apartment and second-hand furniture. But lying could only take him so far. When his grades slipped and he dropped out of high school, his parents were devastated. "I'll find my way," Nathan said confidently, ignoring their pleas to reconsider. He wasn't going to break his back in a factory like his father. Nathan wanted more, and he didn't care how he got it. Nathan's first taste of the life he craved came when he met Lila Brooks at a friend's birthday party. Lila was radiant, her laughter bright enough to draw a crowd wherever she went. She worked as a barista while studying to become a nurse. And Nathan immediately saw her as an opportunity. He introduced himself as the son of wealthy real estate developers, spinning tales of beachfront properties and overseas investments. Lila, taken by his confidence and charm, was swept up in his stories. Nathan capitalized on her admiration, taking her on dates to upscale coffee shops where he carefully controlled his spending, ensuring the illusion of wealth remained intact. Their relationship blossomed quickly. Nathan lavished her with gifts, counterfeit designer handbags and watches he bought from a street vendor, and whispered promises of a future filled with luxury. To Lila, he was a breath of fresh air, a man with ambition and a vision for their future. To Nathan, she was a pawn in his game. When Lila told him she was pregnant 6 months into their relationship, Nathan knew his time was running out. "Let's get married," he said, taking her hands in his. "I want to build a life with you and our child." Their wedding was a modest affair, held in a small community hall with close friends and family. Nathan's parents were notably absent. He explained this away by claiming they were overseas on business. Lila didn't question it. She was too busy imagining their future, a cozy home, a healthy baby, and a happy marriage. For the first few months, Nathan played the role of devoted husband. He accompanied Lila to doctor's appointments, painted the nursery, and talked excitedly about their baby's arrival. But beneath the surface, the weight of his lies began to grow. Their finances were precarious. Nathan had no steady job, relying on odd jobs and borrowed money to maintain his image. He insisted on handling their bills, claiming he didn't want Lila to stress during her pregnancy. But when unpaid notices started arriving, Lila's suspicions grew. One evening, while Nathan was out, Lila found a stack of overdue bills stuffed in a drawer. Her heart sank. When she confronted him, Nathan's reaction was swift and defensive. "You don't trust me?" he snapped. "I'm doing everything I can to support us. And this is how you thank me?" Lila was taken aback by his anger but decided to let it go. She was carrying his child, after all, and wanted to believe in their marriage. Nathan's lies grew harder to sustain after their daughter, Ella, was born. He spent long hours away from home, claiming he was networking for business opportunities. In truth, he had begun chatting with Emily Carter, a graphic designer he met through an online gaming platform. Emily was everything Nathan needed: naive, trusting, and financially stable. He told her he was renovating a mansion on the outskirts of the city and invited her to imagine a life together. Emily was smitten, and when Nathan mentioned he was short on funds for the renovation, she offered to help. "I'll pay you back as soon as the house is finished," Nathan promised as Emily transferred $30 into his account. With Emily's money, Nathan rented a luxury apartment in the same complex as Lila's. He furnished it with cheap but stylish furniture and told Emily it was their temporary home. Meanwhile, He continued visiting Lila under the pretense of spending time with Ella. Nathan's success with Emily emboldened him. He began searching for more targets, focusing on women who seemed vulnerable or eager for love. Through a dating app, he met Sophie Evans, a bright but struggling university student. Sophie was enchanted by Nathan's tales of success and fell for him quickly. Nathan convinced Sophie to lend him $15 for a business investment, which he promised would yield high returns. Around the same time, he met Amelia Jones, a nurse who worked long hours and dreamed of starting her own clinic. Nathan told her he was opening a medical supply company and needed $10 to cover initial costs. Both women believed his stories, and Nathan used their money to pay off debts, buy counterfeit goods, and maintain his lifestyle. By now, Nathan was juggling 4 women: Lila, Emily, Sophie, and Amelia, all of whom believed they were the only one in his life. To keep up appearances, he carefully managed his time, visiting each woman on a rotating schedule and ensuring their paths never crossed. Nathan's most ambitious scheme began when he met Claire Harper, a marketing executive who was both successful and deeply lonely. Claire fell for Nathan's charm, and their relationship progressed quickly. When Claire discovered she was pregnant, Nathan saw an opportunity. He convinced Claire to loan him $50, claiming it was for renovations on their future home. Claire, blinded by love and the prospect of starting a family, didn't hesitate. But as Nathan's web of lies grew more tangled, cracks began to form. Sophie, frustrated by Nathan's constant excuses, demanded her money back. Desperate, Nathan handed her a black plastic bag, claiming it contained $20 in cash. "Don't open it until you get home," he instructed. Sophie, suspicious but hopeful, agreed. When she opened the bag later that evening, she discovered it was filled with counterfeit bills, money meant for bank training exercises. Furious, Sophie reported Nathan to the police. Sophie's call to the police was the beginning of the end for Nathan Turner. The officers didn't initially realize the depth of his schemes, but Sophie's account of being scammed out of $15 piqued their interest. When they examined the counterfeit bills Nathan had given her, it opened a case for fraud. Sophie, however, wasn't done. She contacted Emily and Amelia, women she had noticed Nathan messaging on social media, pretending to be single and unattached. Emily was the first to respond. "I'm living with Nathan," she said, her voice confused over the phone. "He's been busy with work lately. But he loves me. Why are you asking?" Sophie could barely hold back her frustration. "Emily, you're not the only one. He's been scamming me and others for money. Do you know about Claire Harper?" Emily's silence was deafening. She had no idea who Claire was. Nor did she know about Sophie or Amelia. It was the first time the carefully constructed walls of Nathan's lies began to crumble. Emily and Sophie arranged to meet in person, swapping stories and text messages from Nathan. The pieces began to fit together, forming a picture of a man who had mastered the art of manipulation. The revelation left Emily in tears. "I loaned him $30, she confessed. "He said it was for renovations on our future home." Sophie clenched her fists, her anger boiling over. "We're not the only ones. I know there's at least one more, Amelia." The 2 women reached out to Amelia, who had been growing suspicious of Nathan's constant excuses. When she heard Sophie and Emily's stories, her heartbreak turned to fury. "He told me he was starting a medical supply business," she exclaimed. "I gave him $10 to help with the startup." The 3 women decided it was time to take action. They gathered their evidence, text messages, bank transfers, and photographs of Nathan, and brought it to the police. What they didn't realize was that Claire Harper, pregnant and feeling neglected by Nathan, was about to join their ranks. Claire had been growing uneasy in her relationship with Nathan. His frequent absences and vague explanations didn't sit well with her, especially now that she was expecting his child. One evening, while Nathan was in the shower, she picked up his phone and unlocked it. What she found left her breathless. Messages to Sophie, Emily, and Amelia filled his inbox, each conversation dripping with the same lies he had told her. Claire felt her world shatter. She had given Nathan $50 for their dream home, and now it was clear she wasn't the only woman in his life. When Claire reached out to Sophie's number, one she found in Nathan's phone, she was met with a stunned silence. "You're not the first to call me about him," Sophie finally said. "We're meeting with the police. You should join us." The four women, once strangers, met for the first time in a small cafe. Their shared stories turned their anger into a unified purpose, bringing Nathan to justice. Lila, Nathan's estranged wife, had remained unaware of his continued schemes. But she became an unexpected ally when the women reached out to her. Lila was initially reluctant to get involved. She had built a stable life for herself and Ella after throwing Nathan out. And the thought of reopening old wounds was painful. But when she learned that Nathan had rented apartments for his girlfriends in the same building as hers, using the money he had scammed from them, her resolve hardened. "He's been living in the same building this whole time?" she asked, her voice shaking with fury. "This ends now." With the women's testimonies and evidence, the police began tracking Nathan's movements. They discovered his pattern of manipulation. From Emily's $30 loan to Sophie's counterfeit cash and Claire's $50. The case grew larger as more details emerged, including Nathan's use of fake bills to maintain his image. When the officers finally caught up with Nathan, he was at a high-end restaurant with Claire, who had agreed to meet him one last time to lure him into custody. Nathan, oblivious to her betrayal, was in the middle of ordering champagne when two officers approached the table. "Nathan Turner, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and distribution of counterfeit currency," one officer said, pulling out handcuffs. Nathan's face drained of color. "There's been a mistake," he stammered, his charm failing him for the first time. "I don't know what this is about." Claire stood, her voice steady and cold. "It's about all the lies you've told. Nathan, it's over." The courtroom was packed as Nathan's trial began. The women he had deceived sat together, united by their shared determination to see him held accountable. Lila, who had been reluctant to face him again, sat in the front row, her presence a quiet testament to her strength. Nathan's defense was flimsy at best. His lawyer painted him as a misguided man who had made poor choices out of desperation. But the overwhelming evidence left little room for doubt. The testimonies from Sophie, Emily, Amelia, and Claire painted a damning picture of a man who had manipulated and stolen from those who trusted him. After weeks of deliberation, the judge delivered the verdict. Nathan was sentenced to 9 years and 6 months in prison, with an additional fine of $120. The court also ordered the confiscation of $280 from Nathan's accounts to repay his victims. In the aftermath of Nathan's conviction, the women began rebuilding their lives. Emily returned to her graphic design career, determined to trust her instincts in the future. Sophie, inspired by her experience, began studying criminal justice, hoping to help other victims of fraud. Amelia focused on her nursing career, channeling her pain into compassion for her patients. Claire, now a single mother, found solace in the community of women who had shared her ordeal. Together, they formed an unlikely but enduring bond, meeting regularly to support one another as they moved forward. Lila, too, found closure. With Nathan behind bars, she no longer lived in fear of his manipulations. Her focus remained on raising Ella, teaching her the importance of honesty, resilience, and self-respect. Nathan Turner's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked charm and deceit. For the women he had wronged, it was a painful but ultimately empowering chapter in their lives, a testament to their strength and unity in the face of betrayal. As the years passed, the women thrived, their scars serving as a reminder of their resilience. And Nathan, alone in his prison cell, was left to reflect on the web of lies he had spun and the lives he had destroyed. Nathan Turner sat in his dimly lit prison cell, the reality of his actions weighing heavier with each passing day. The once charming and manipulative man had been stripped of his power, his lies laid bare for the world to see. The days were long and monotonous, leaving Nathan with little to do but reflect on the choices that had led him here. At first, Nathan tried to rationalize his behavior, convincing himself that he had only done what he needed to survive. But as he replayed the moments of his deceit, he began to see the faces of the women he had hurt, their trust, their hope, and the way he had shattered it all. For the first time in years, Nathan felt something unfamiliar: guilt. The letters he received from Lila stung the most. Though they were infrequent, they carried a tone of disappointment that cut deeper than anger. "Ella is doing well," one letter read. "She asks about you sometimes. But I tell her you're somewhere where you need to think about the choices you've made. I hope, for her sake, that you're doing just that." Ella, his daughter, the thought of her growing up without a father, especially one she could look up to, was the hardest truth to swallow. After Nathan's conviction, Lila found herself navigating the challenges of single motherhood. Though it wasn't easy, she took solace in the stability she had created for herself and Ella. Lila's nursing career flourished, and she became a respected figure in her community. She often spoke at local women's groups, sharing her story to inspire others to prioritize self-worth and independence. Ella, now a curious and bright child, thrived under Lila's care. Lila ensured that her daughter understood the importance of honesty and resilience, teaching her to face life's challenges with grace and strength. Emily, once heartbroken and humiliated, emerged stronger than ever. She used the financial loss she suffered as motivation to start her own freelance design business. Her work gained recognition, and within a few years, Emily was running a successful company. The experience with Nathan left her wary of relationships, but it also taught her to value herself. When she eventually opened her heart again, it was to someone who appreciated her for who she was, not for what she could give. Sophie's life took an unexpected turn after her experience with Nathan. Driven by a desire to understand how people like Nathan operated, she enrolled in a criminal justice program. Her studies became a source of empowerment, and Sophie eventually joined a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping victims of fraud. She often thought back to the day she opened that black plastic bag. The weight of the counterfeit bills symbolic of the lies Nathan had built his life on. Sophie vowed to use her knowledge to protect others from falling into similar traps. Amelia poured herself into her work, finding purpose in helping others heal. As a nurse, she encountered countless patients facing hardships, and her own experiences gave her a unique empathy. Over time, Amelia's anger toward Nathan faded, replaced by a quiet determination to live a life defined by kindness and authenticity. She eventually met someone who valued her strength and resilience, building a partnership rooted in mutual respect. Claire, now a single mother, focused her energy on raising her child. Though the betrayal left her scarred, Claire refused to let it define her. She returned to her career in marketing, her confidence growing with each project she successfully completed. Her child became her greatest source of joy, a reminder of the resilience she had discovered within herself. Claire often reflected on the women she had met during the ordeal, grateful for the unlikely bond that had formed between them. 2 years into his sentence, Nathan began attending therapy sessions offered within the prison. Initially, he was resistant, viewing the sessions as a waste of time. But as he listened to the stories of other inmates, men who had made similar mistakes, Nathan began to see himself in a new light. Through therapy, Nathan confronted the root of his behavior, a deep-seated fear of inadequacy that had driven him to create a false persona. He realized that his lies had been a way to mask his insecurities. But in doing so, he had hurt the very people who had cared for him. Nathan started writing letters to the women he had wronged. He didn't expect forgiveness but felt compelled to acknowledge the pain he had caused. In his letters, he apologized sincerely, offering no excuses for his actions. Some letters went unanswered, while others were met with cautious responses. For Nathan, the act of taking responsibility was a small but meaningful step toward redemption. The 4 women, Lila, Emily, Sophie, and Claire, remained in touch long after Nathan's trial. What began as a shared tragedy blossomed into a deep and enduring friendship. They met regularly, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating each other's victories. One evening, as they gathered for dinner at Lila's house, Sophie raised a toast. "To us," she said, her glass held high, "to strength, to resilience, and to the future." The others joined in, their glasses clinking together. In that moment, they realized that while Nathan's lies had brought them together, it was their shared strength that had forged an unbreakable bond. Nathan Turner's name faded from the headlines, But the lessons his story carried endured. For the women he had deceived, his betrayal was a turning point, a catalyst for growth and empowerment. They emerged from the ordeal not as victims but as survivors, each charting a path defined by courage and self-respect. As for Nathan, his time in prison was a period of reckoning. While he couldn't undo the harm he had caused, he hoped to rebuild his life with honesty when he eventually walked free. And so, the story of Nathan Turner became a tale of caution and resilience. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a way forward.